Here we are, Dr. Randy, our next podcast for April 2023, which is,
How did it get to be April? I guess we had rain for so long. It's like, it's April? How did that happen?
I know it's sunny in California, so it's good.
I know. This is an interesting topic um, that comes up all the time, and people don't normally talk about it. So
Hmm.
if somebody calls me to want to do couples therapy, the person who calls, of course, is more motivated. Usually it's the woman, but it can be the man as well. And they're kind of bringing the other person into therapy, sometimes against their will. Maybe it's been an affair, and of course, that person doesn't want to have that examined or talked about. Or maybe they're just unhappy with the relationship. But the other person doesn't want to lose their partner and is willing to come in, doesn't want to be on the outside of what might be a conspiracy. You know, the wife or husband is in seeing a therapist and something may be said about them and they don't have any power to change that voice. So they come in, but they're not really motivated. And you can see it from the beginning. They're going along with the program. They're trying to learn all the things I'm teaching them. But underneath, you can see that they're not happy.
Hmm.
So during the therapy session, of course, they're extremely cooperative. They want to learn, they want to help, they want to make it better. But then something happens when they go home that feels to the person who brought them in kind of like sabotage. Now, some of the behaviors I'm going to tell you about that the sabotaging partner does could have been what brought them into therapy to begin with. In other words, some of these behaviors already made the person who called for therapy a little suspicious, but all of a sudden they become much more intense. Now, it's true that the person is sabotaging that therapeutic process because really wants it to be over with may not even realize that he or she is doing that. May not even realize that, but the behaviors are clearly sabotaging. So I want to go over what they are so we can. So if you're the person who's doing the sabotaging or have been sabotaging that process, that you'll know what behaviors to look for and to pay attention to, right? So you can identify them. If we can get those back into the therapeutic process, in other words, the passive aggressive or sabotaging behaviors, if we can bring back what is happening into the therapeutic process, we can get to the root of what's underneath that isn't being expressed or talked about. So let me go over them if I can with you. I don't, as in most of these podcasts, because of my nearly a half century of experience, I could talk about any of these subjects for an hour. So making them into a kind of more concrete presentation, right, because people don't want to listen to things for long periods of time. I'll try to keep myself in some way suppressed. So okay. The first one is erasing. It's very interesting when you come in a room and before the person would have said, "Hi, how are you? And how was your day?" But they don't say hello. Nothing. They act as if you're not there. So you walk by them, you say, "How are you?" "Fine." But over a period of time, it's like, you're not even noticing me. You're not paying attention to me. You're not even getting up when I come in. You're not asking me about my day. What's going on? "Oh, I'm just tired," whatever that. But you feel erased. Anything you do, anything you say, it feels like it didn't happen because you're not getting any validation from the other side that you exist. So when erasing increases, there may be sabotage to the therapeutic process happening. Remember, the person who didn't want to be there but agreed to be there, who may be also in life a passive-aggressive person agreeing to something he or she doesn't want to do, but feeling they have to do that, that person may in fact be doing the same thing, but again, as I said, more increased. So the second one would be preoccupation, and this one is it's hard to identify, but once you've identified it, it's so clear. Every time you go to talk to that person who is sabotaging the therapeutic relationship, they're busy doing something. And they're busy doing something that's really important. They're watching a ball game, or they're working out a puzzle on their phone, or they have to all of a sudden make a call that's really important. But it's very clear that they're preoccupying their time in priority, not to allow you in, not to allow the connection to be made. And it's very apparent because once you point it out, You can see that they weren't preoccupied until you went to make the connection, and then all of a sudden they're very busy. They have to wash the dishes, or they have to call their mother, or they have to do something, but they are too busy to talk. So that behavior increases. The third one, which is very interesting, is what I call diminished tracking. When you love someone and you want to make your relationship get better, you pay a lot of attention to that person's life. If they have a doctor appointment, they come home at night and say, hey, what happened with the doctor? Or if they talk to a friend who was in trouble and they told you about it the night before, you're saying, how's your friend doing? If somebody is concerned or worried about their own medical health in some way, that person tracks them. They talk about the past, they move it into the present, they move it into the future. What's going to happen now? What do you think you're going to be doing? Will you be seeing the doctor again? So people who are interested in other people track them. Now, any parent knows that you do that automatically with children. How was the test today at school? Did you feel like you did okay after we worked on it together? You track people you love because you care about where they've been, where they are, where they're going, because they matter to you. So a person who's trying to sabotage a therapeutic process stops the tracking process. They don't ask them anymore. Oh, they forgot. Hey, I went to the doctor today. Oh yeah, I remember you told me. Well, okay, so what happened? But it isn't a true interest. The person is pulling away and doesn't want to be involved because there's an underlying resentment that they're in a therapeutic process they don't want to be in. Okay, the next one that's really interesting is their prime time starts to go elsewhere. They'll be sitting on a couch, sort of lazing, not very interested or interesting. They're not responding, they're preoccupied, they're playing on their phone or whatever. And a phone call comes in from somebody they like. And they turn on like a light bulb. Hey, how are you doing? What's going on? All of a sudden they're alive. So they have the capacity to bring that out, but they're certainly withholding it from you. That diminishment of importance, that difference in priority, the prime time is going somewhere else, and it's not going to the person who's asking them to fix the relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. The next one would be forgetting agreements. Oh dear, did I say I would pick you up from work today? I just forgot. Or, oh, I was supposed to stop by the bank and take out money with the person who's going to come fix our house tomorrow. Something I got tied up. I'm really sorry. There is a passive aggressive sabotaging in that process, because before they would not make an agreement and forget it. But now all of a sudden they're just not paying attention as much. And as I said, and it's important to realize the person who's sabotaging that therapeutic relationship may not even know that he or she is doing it to that extent. But they're leading their partner on, yes, I really want to work on the relationship, but they really don't want to. They really don't want to put out this energy, but they don't want to say no, or they can't say no, or they're too embarrassed to be there. So they're acting like a good little kid, but their heart's not in it. So you see these behaviors begin to increase. So the next one is the absence of compliments. Now I want to say something to everybody out there. People who are in relationships over time tend to voice the things they don't like and not say the things they do. It's a heartache for me to watch, because it is one of the things that relationships die from. People just don't say out loud. I've often said to people, if you have anything negative to say it in an email. So anything that comes out of your mouth is going to be positive.
Mm-hmm.
But when a person is sabotaging a therapeutic relationship, that giving of compliments diminishes enormously. They don't want the person to feel good, because underneath all this, they're angry.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't want to admit they're angry, or they don't want to admit to themselves they're angry, because they're trying to do, quote unquote, the right thing, but their heart's not in it. Okay, the seventh one would be flipping blame or accountability. Now, this tends to happen in almost all relationships when people are under pressure or cornered or feel defensive. What about you? Don't you do that too? they'll flip it. When somebody asks a challenge, or why are you so preoccupied, or how come you have energy for everybody else but not for me? They'll flip it. Well, why don't you look at yourself? When's the last time you had energy for me? In other words, flipping that accountability, putting the onus on the other person increases dramatically when somebody is sabotaging. But I want people to know that it's a typical behavior when couples are fighting, that I have to tell people, don't do that. You did this. Well, now we have two issues on the table. Let's take what I did and let's take what you did separately, but one does not erase the other. So the last one I'm going to talk about, as I said, I could probably come up with 20 more, is of course the avoidance of affection or intimate contact. I want to reiterate that a lot of these behaviors may have been what brought that person into therapy to begin with. But my point here is that they have increased. They become exaggerated. So all of a sudden you go to give that person a hug and they shrug it off. Or the person will give you a kiss to turn their head sideways. They don't reach out. They sleep on the other side of the bed. They're withholding any kind of affection, reassurance, or support to that person because, again, they're angry. They're doing something they don't want to do, and they're sort of getting back at you. So when people come into therapy, I usually start with telling them, please don't sabotage this process. It's hard enough already. You have to go through all the layers of heartbreak and sadness to get to anything good that's underneath this. So what you need to do, of course, is the opposite of all these things. Instead of erasing, you notice and you pay attention. Instead of preoccupation, when a person comes to talk to you, unless it's really a business call with a boss or something, you put everything down. And you say, just the way you would with a child, you put everything down. And you say, I'm here. What do you need to talk about? You start tracking everything that person is doing, letting them know over and over again how much you care for them. Your prime time energy returns to the relationship. It's no longer a pit stop where you change your tires and you do all the racing outside. All of a sudden, it becomes number one. You remember all agreements. They become important to you. You remind each other of agreements and you want to keep them. You start complimenting one another, authentic compliments, looking for what you love about that person rather than what you don't love about them. And you make sure they know that. You don't flip blame or accountability. If somebody says, this is what I'm angry at, talk to me more about it. Give me some examples. I may not see it the same way you do, but I want to hear your pain or your sorrow or your sadness. So instead of flipping, they take responsibility and much more affection, even if it's just sitting next to each other or holding hands, or they join the process, and then the therapy takes off. So that's what I'm trying to tell people. If you're going to go into a therapeutic process, you've got to have commitment, energy, interested in the outcome, participation. And if you can't do that, that becomes the therapeutic process. Tell me why you can't. Otherwise, you're running uphill. And every time you do something, you come back and you start over again with each session as if nothing has taken place.
Do they really you have to be really prepped to have your mind open versus thinking that the actual therapy will just solve by itself? There's a two-way or three-way, I guess.
Yes.
Kind of coordination to do it.
So when I see the relationship's not getting any better in our therapeutic, we're doing everything right, but it's stalled. It's not getting any better. They come back, as I said, didn't we talk about that last week? Did you do the exercises or the suggestions I suggested? Well, we just didn't get around to. It's stalled. Well, that becomes then the therapeutic issue. Why is the relationship stalled? And then these things come to light. And if you can turn them around, it's like, as I said, it's like a reset. Now the therapeutic process works.
Right. All right. That looks like a thorough. It's an easy to hear, especially if you're seeking therapy, that there needs to be some sort of commitment to the people that are participating, not just go there and thinking. So it's a somewhat of an uncomfortable topic, but it's true.
Absolutely. And when therapy begins to work and you sort of turn this around, this kind of negative spiral, then all of a sudden you see all this motivation because the people have faith and they're committed and things are starting to get better. And then you can feel the couple starting to work together again rather than against each other, one working against.
Right.
So interesting. So if you're going to go into therapy, make sure that you're both there because you want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're feeling any sense of withdrawal or feeling used or resentful or taken advantage of, that has to be talked about first.
Right. All right. So that ends our podcast. We will make sure we post this in your blog and your social, LinkedIn. And thank you for sharing this with us, Dr. Anna.
It's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to our next podcast soon.